Welcome back to Intentionality with Paul Kempff. This is episode 75, and I'm super excited today because I have a very cool guest in the studio with us today. A very warm welcome to Leander. Intentionality with Paul Kempff, for people who lead with intention and live with impact.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here, and I'm pleased to share your hairstyle.
Good one. I like that. I met Leander recently. We had one or two great chats and immediately decided that we have to do a podcast episode together. And I am really excited about what he's going to share with us today. But obviously, we need to start with the introductions. So, Leander, we had a brief discussion. You told me a few interesting things. I know you studied law, but you're not a lawyer, or not anymore.
Correct.
I know you've done some coaching, but you're not really a coach. You sound like a consultant, but you're not a traditional consultant. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you do?
Thanks, Paul. Yes, I practiced law for 22 years. Decided to take a sabbatical in 2020 to do a Leander reinvention project, I called it. See what comes out on the other side. And what came out was what I like to call an inspirational catalyst. On the one hand, it's the intersection between inspirational catalyst and chief accountability enthusiast is my C-suite title. So I don't have an office, but if I had a door, that's what it would have said on the door.
CAE.
CAE.
Chief Accountability.
Yeah. Nothing. Expert. It doesn't exist. Enthusiast.
Enthusiast. I like that.
There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. I made that up, but I had fun in the process. Why inspirational? I think people need less information. What moves people is a shift that happens internally. And I see myself often as just the spark to create that shift. You could say I accelerate action.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk going on. I prefer to be the doer and not the talker. So that's on the inspirational side. Catalyst, unlike traditional consultants, and I understand, I get it why businesses and CEOs would say, please, we don't need a consultant. We know what to do, right? And many consultants, there are excellent consultants out there, and they're very good at telling you what to do. But that's not the challenge. It was Stephen Covey who said in 2004, the great unaddressed issue in most organizations is execution, meaning how do we do it? Show me how to do it in the midst of this busyness that I'm experiencing. So I see myself as taking co-responsibility with CEOs like yourself to say, let's shoulder the responsibility. That way we each carrying 50% of the responsibility and let's work with your team and get it done. And we start with one small thing tomorrow.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yes.
This really resonates with me because almost every single strategy session we've done in our business over the last few years, our biggest problem when we review our strategy and our strategy execution a year later is exactly this. Yeah. We talk a lot, we make some great plans, and then you fail to implement. You fail to reach the goals, not necessarily because the goals were wrong or the goals were too big, but simply because you got caught up in everyday life, everyday work, the mundane, the necessary, but not necessarily the strategic stuff that you need to be doing. And what you're telling me is you come into a business, you're the catalyst, and you help us actually execute. Is that
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. And the way I do it, so you've just described, and thank you for that. I'm going to cut this clip and put it on my website. Thanks for it's the first time someone actually understands what I do. But it's not traditional, and that's why I think it's hard for people to put me in a box, and that's the thing, But the third point is how I do it is I came across a wonderful quote by a guy that says accountability is the glue that binds commitment to result. In those strategy sessions of yours, everyone is usually super committed to achieve that goal, right? And you and I both enjoy reading James Clear, and he says, we don't rise to the level of our goals or the results. We fall to the level of our systems and processes and habits. And so I decided to focus there where I believe I could probably deliver the most value. And the accountability is I'm really just glue. I'm a glorified, a Prit
Yeah.
or a Henkel bottle of Henkel glue. I'm just binding the commitment with the result, with those incremental actions that we all know, once compounding takes an effect, leads to tremendous results. I think one of your podcasts spoke about accretion.
Yes, that's right. It's one of my favorite words.
Okay, so you and I, birds of a feather, we believe that it's the small processes, the systems we put in place, the disciplined habits that lead to tremendous results. But everyone's focused on the goal, and I love referring to Rassi and the box. I think in both 2019 and 2023, if you think about it, all 16 or however many teams that took part in the Rugby World Cups in those years had the same goal, right? They want to win the William Webb Ellis Trophy.
Yeah.
So the quality of the goal didn't make the box win. I think they just executed better on the very small, often unseen steps leading up to the goal. And it sounds easy, but it does hard.
And the systems and the processes.
Absolutely.
I went to a breakfast a week or two ago, Ibn Etzebeth's book signing. And the one thing that was very clear from every single question that he was asked and the way he spoke about Rassi and about the team and the rugby, it was this absolute dedication to processes and systems.
Wow. Goosebumps.
Add to that transparency, the way that everybody knows exactly what's going on. There's no secrets. Everything is done in the open. I think if you combine those things, it makes a big difference, and we can see it in the results. And now that team is progressing.
Winning combination. It's not strategy or leadership or culture. It's all three. I did a YouTube video on that, Unlock Strategy Hacks, and I said I love simplifying things, but there's certain things you can't simplify, right? Leadership. You're a leader of FFG, and leadership underpins the whole chain's success. But on top of that, you also need good culture, because strategy will die on the vine, is what Peter Drucker said. Strategy dies on the vine if the culture is toxic. He, by the way, didn't say culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a misquote.
That's something I've heard a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
He actually didn't say that. And my source is the Claremont University and the business school which carries his name. Okay. They confirmed. He said strategy dies on the vine when the culture is toxic. So you can see it's leadership, then it's the culture, and it's strategy. And without overcomplicating things, I think focus on one thing first. And if you asked me now, what should I focus on first? Your great leadership, your openness, the fact that when I ask you, what are you reading? You say, I'm reading this, or I'm reading that. Or yesterday we had coffee and I said, I mentioned a book to you, and you immediately wrote the name down. And I know you probably already downloaded it.
I already went and bought it on Amazon. I must just tell you, I always listen to recommendations, and I'm going to read the book. I haven't started. I'm just finishing another one. But just so you know, this was the most expensive book that anybody has ever recommended to me. But I trust you. I've bought it, and I'm going to read it.
Absolutely worth it. The Founder's Mentality by Zook and Allen.
Yes, that's right. I'm definitely going to read it. I think it's going to be very relevant to what some of the things we're going through in our business at the moment. But
the difference in what, Paul, I have so many of these discussions with people like yesterday. Like, I'm going to get the book. Yeah. A week later, have you got the book? Yes, I got a bit busy, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a small thing as like you going, open Amazon, buy with one click. Yeah. Well done, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Book. Okay, you haven't started reading it. That doesn't matter, but it's there.
Yeah.
And then I'll nudge you in a week's time and say,
that's fine.
Start where you are, and you don't have to finish the other book. I read 5 books in parallel at any given stage because there are just too many good books out there. And I think it's also a myth to think that we have to finish every book we open. I read recently, a guy says there are 4 million English books in the English language, only in the English language published. If a book doesn't resonate with you within a day, put the thing down. In a year's time, in a different season of your life, it's going to resonate and you can pick it up again. But don't feel that you first have to complete one before reading a next good book, because you're actually just postponing the magic that could happen once you read that next book. So if that one it feels like a bit of a ball and chain, put it down, start reading Founder's Mentality. And if you don't like that one, then read the next one. You
Okay.
can read 10 books at the same time.
Leander, pause. Stop there. You are throwing me with so many gems here and so many things I want to comment on.
Sorry.
Give me a second. No. Don't apologize. It's amazing. But just give me a second to respond to a few things you've said before we move on to a next topic. So let's just start with this reading more than one book at a time. 5 is impressive. I think the most books I've ever read at one time is 3 books.
Okay.
But I think that's an important point. You don't have to just be reading one book at a time. The second point you made that I want to really respond to here, I need your help. Because I have a little bit of OCD. I always tell people it's not an OCD or an obsessive compulsive disorder, it's an obsessive compulsive tendency. And it manifests in the fact that I cannot not finish a book.
Okay.
So that's something you might have to help me a little bit, coach me a little bit on, is how to just say, no, I don't have to read this book because I don't like it anymore.
Okay.
So that was the second thing. And then the third thing I want to touch on, which you mentioned earlier, you spoke about yourself as the accountable one. Now, there's been many episodes in the past that I've spoken about the concept of an accountability partner. But in every single one of those episodes, I've spoken about an accountability partner in the context of your personal life. You know, having somebody that you go to gym with. He's waiting for you, you have to go. Somebody that keeps you accountable in terms of your diet. Somebody that keeps you accountable in terms of your budget, usually a spouse or somebody. It's always been in your personal life. This is the first time that I've heard of an accountability partner more in a professional life type of setup. Is that what you're saying? You are accountable partner to professionals.
It's exactly that. It was the late Jim Rohn who said that accountability, and I say it builds a bridge because there's a massive chasm, there's a valley between our commitment and the result that we seek in everything. Let's focus on business. So we've crafted the strategy, and now everyone says, that's great. Paul just read a new book. Now he's got a new plan in his head. Right?
Always.
Good luck. And people get cynical because
Yeah,
then
they
they
do.
know what follows. It's a valley that follows.
Yeah.
An accountability partner for a CEO, for a management, a manco, for a management committee, for mid-level managers, for the frontline employees. What that does is it just builds a bridge. It sounds conceptually, it sounds wonderful. Leander explained to me what. Okay, let's break it down to the frontline employee level. We said we want to increase our customer loyalty using the Net Promoter Score from 7.5 or 75 to 80. That's the strategic objective, right? Very good because we're working on customer loyalty. Let's break it down to the frontline level. How many interactions when you as a frontline employee speaking to your clients will you be prepared to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 this week? In other words, the frontline employee says, I'm going to do some introspection and listen to the recording maybe afterwards and give myself a score out of. That's the first step because that's where the strategy gets executed at the front line.
Accountability.
It gets created in the C-suite and that's what an accountability partner would say. How many self-reflection sessions did you do this week? Because if he or she has done 3, then the chances maybe 1 this week, maybe 2 next week, 3, and it becomes a habit. It's the focus again on the small things, the invisible things that ultimately lead to the tremendous result where you increase your Net Promoter Score by 5 points.
I like it.
So it really has to be atomic. It has to be the smallest next step that I can tell my frontline employee, focus just on this. Just read 1 page from a book. Tomorrow, read a 2nd page from the book. Don't try and finish the book. Yeah. I had a team who got back to me. Someone said to the CEO, what's the point of this reading a book? Why must we, something like to the effect like, what's the point of finishing the book? And he said, you're missing the point. It's not finishing the book. It's showing me the discipline that you can read for 15 minutes and then carry on with your work. And that's what I encourage people to do. Read for 5 minutes, 3 times a week. People go like, that's so insignificant. It won't make a difference. It will if you compound it. And
With accretion.
With accretion.
Exactly. You've mentioned the word atomic. You spoke about James Clear. I have to just quickly mention here. Okay, Leander, let's move on to the next topic. You told me you want to talk about overcommitment and how overcommitment in our modern day lives is the silent drift. What do you mean by that?
Initially, my experience is that overcommitment sounds like it sounds a lot like ambition.
It does.
Look how ambitious Paul is. He's committed to do this and the marketing and in the end, all that it does, overcommitment, it fragments your focus. You see, drift that I'm referring to there isn't laziness. It's actually capacity debt. You're so far in debt as far as capacity is concerned. Because isn't it true, if you think about your strategy sessions, and your company is certainly not the only one, I think the bulk of companies will resonate with this. There are always more ideas than there is capacity to execute. And that's why drift occurs, because we go so far in debt with everything that we want to do that we lose focus of the one thing called the priority that we should be focusing on. You see, the more commitments you stack, the less depth you bring. So you're going a mile broad and an inch deep. The less depth, the slower your execution. And the slower your execution, the more cynical people get in the organization. Oh, just not another strategy session. Please, heavens, no. Intentional living, and I love the podcast. Guys, intent is what it's about.
Yeah.
Intentional living doesn't require better motivation or better goals. It just requires fewer, clearer priorities. In fact, one priority and then ranked goals after that. So once that priority has been dealt with, ranked goal number 2 becomes the priority. But what we've done is we call it a list of priorities. It's actually a misnomer. The Latin root for the word priority is prior, which means the main thing, the one thing, the only thing. So what we're saying is we have a list of main things.
Yeah, can't be. Doesn't make sense.
It's impossible. I'd like to get practical and just share with you. I led a strategy retreat, a favorite client of mine last week, a bunch of really great guys. Low ego, high humility. Winning recipe, by the way, for any consultant. That's what you should be looking for if you want to know if you've got the winning client. And I asked them just to make 3 choices. It was a 2-day. We covered choice 1 on day 1. What does winning look like in 3 years from now for this company? And we crafted 1 sentence. And you could think, well, you guys probably spent the rest of the time doing you know what at these retreats, but we actually didn't. We spent the whole half day unpacking that. And day 2, we then spoke about where will the company play and how will it win in that market where it's chosen to play. 3 choices. That was it. Lunchtime, Friday, we did 2 half days. I said to the guys, we're done. We can go home. And the feedback was a bit better than some of the other strategy retreats where you have death by PowerPoint. I didn't show a single PowerPoint slide. I made the guys take a pen and a piece of paper and write what winning looks like, which markets do they think they should play, and just have a nice discussion like we're having today about sharing ideas and just thinking aloud.
So simple. I love some of the words you've used there. You speak about capacity debt. I've never thought of it that way, but you know, when you do a strategic session, you say, right, we're going to have 10 strategic goals for the year. That's exactly it. I mean, there's no way you're going to have capacity to chase all 10 those goals this year. You know, as you're saying, rather find a priority, one priority, focus on that one. Once you've completed that, go to the next one. I love the way you think about that.
Just to be fair, the framework that I referred to just now, it actually consists of 5 choices. The 4th choice is which capabilities do you need to build to win in the way that you decided to win in those markets so that your winning aspiration can come true. And the last one, which management systems must you create? So these are choices. 5 choices comes from the book Playing to Win by Martin and Lafley. Lafley was the CEO of Procter & Gamble, and Martin was a strategist doing similar work, except he's the gold standard, and I'm sitting at his feet and learning from him. He did a wonderful YouTube video. A strategy is not planning, and planning is not strategy. And people often, you hear they go on a strategic planning session. The 2 are actually directly opposed to each other, but we can have a later discussion. But if you Google strategy is not a plan. Roger Martin, you'll see it on YouTube. Fantastic video by the author, co-author of the book.
Thank you. I'll definitely go and have a look at it.
That's your next book.
That's my next book. I don't want to move away from this idea of overcommitment because I've got a few things to say about it. Overcommitment to me feels like saying yes to too much in your life, not saying no enough. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Overcommitment to me also feels very familiar because of my previous masterclass with Francois. We did an episode on the hustle lie.
Yes, I watched that. It was great.
Would you agree?
Yes.
What we're talking about
100%.
is something similar, yeah?
100%.
The fact that we have a tendency these days to go and say, I must do as much as possible, put in as much effort and time as possible. But then something happens in that overcommitment, in that hustle lie that you and I have spoken about. And it's that loss of balance. Francois and I spoke about it a lot. And I know we are a little bit off topic here now, but in our conversations, you've said to me that there's some things in your life that is non-negotiable. And I think it relates a lot to this hustle lie, this overcommitment. Don't you just want to expand on that and maybe tell us a little bit about your non-negotiables around family?
People strive. Thanks, Paul. And this is important. If I could say one thing, it would be this, and then we can just cut the recording after this. I redefined success, and I took a leaf out of John Maxwell's book, and I can't even recall which book it was, but I know it was Maxwell who said that no measure of success at work can make up for failure at home. I'm going to say that again really slowly. No measure of success in the marketplace where you're operating and where people regard you as successful can make up for failure at home. My wife and I never had kids. If you ask me how successful I am, don't ask my clients, ask Karine, my wife. She'll give you the honest answer. The moment I redefined success, following Maxwell's quote, everything changed because, of course, I'm looking forward to this and I wouldn't miss this opportunity to spend some time with you this afternoon. But I did have to go and visit Dad in ICU just before this because my definition of success is crafted at home. What son am I? What husband am I? And what friend am I? You practiced what I'm preaching very recently in an instance in your life.
Yes,
you know
with friends of ours. Yes,
friends of yours. Right. And so I want to say to you, that's a non-negotiable. If anything, if I'm given the opportunity to do anything, I have to ask, how successful will I be at home if I choose this opportunity? And strategy, in essence, is choosing to say no, not yes. I want to just give a shout out to a friend of mine, and I'm going to share the image with you and ask if you would upload it and allow your users to go and download the little image. It's a cartoon drawn by a close friend of mine, Jaap Nel, super smart guy, CEO of an engineering firm. And he drew a rocket, and the boosters of the rocket, the words no, and he refers to as nitrous oxide. And he says, power your yes, which is at the tip of the rocket, with your nose. And he has a target there, and that's your purpose. So if you want to achieve your purpose, you have to have one yes, and all the other things that are powering you forward towards your purpose or your goal are the things you say no to. And so I have said no to more things in the past 5 years than I've said yes to. My clients are actually reducing every year, but I'm doing more work with clients with whom I've established a trust relationship. And it's because I've learned to say no to things outside of a friend of mine, Andrew, used to say, your kill zone. It sounds a bit melodramatic, but that's where you want to make an impact. That's where you want to focus your intent on, is your kill zone. But you can't kill in your kill zone and have your intent make an impact if you're saying yes to everything around the kill zone. That just dilutes your focus and your impact.
I love the way you think about these things and the way that you express yourself. It makes a lot of sense to me. It feels to me almost as if it's destined, this conversation that we're having after the conversation we had in our previous episode around this hustle lie. But I don't want to move on yet. There's a few more things that I want to explore here. I think that I personally struggle with that balance. I try really hard to keep the balance, but I fail often. I think a lot of other people listening might be feeling the same way. You know, we know what the right things are to do. We know where the balance comes in, but we often struggle with that. No, we often struggle getting that balance right. And I think that there's a very important conversation that needs to take place here around discipline. Being disciplined, and around how discipline as a chosen intent applied through incremental action can help you to find that balance.
May I? You've used the word balance 4 times now, and I just want to say the following. The insight dawned on me recently that depending where you are, in which season of your life, it may not necessarily be 50-50.
Yes.
I'm building a new business. So when I practiced law, it was 90-10, 90 in favor of my legal practice and my partners, and I would feel guilty not working on a Saturday and half of a Sunday. It's crazy. But I mean, it was all self-inflicted. It's not my partner's fault. It's not the profession I chose. It was self-inflicted.
Yeah.
It's that ambition, right, that we misinterpret. And so in that season, 90-10, until my wife just took me aside one day and said, look, I just want to understand, is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? I just want to know, so I'll get a hobby, speed knitting or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, she has a way of putting, she should actually be on your show. I stand on the shoulders.
We can make a plan.
I stand on the shoulders of giants, including my wife. But it's not always 50-50, but the intent with which you spend the 10% could be enough to fill her cup, because she knows, she's with you in it. When I reinvented myself after 6 weeks in my studying, in my sabbatical in 2020, I went with her for a walk, and I said to her, I'm thinking of taking an early retirement at my firm and starting my own business. And she said, well, she asked me one question. Are we going to be poor, or like most entrepreneurs are, or are we going to be able to have a pizza every now and again and hang around?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I'll take care of that. And she said, well, thank you. Then I'm behind you.
Yeah.
And for the first 3 years, it probably was. But she knew at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we walk the dogs in our park. And then I am the proverbial rubbish truck. And look, I don't profess to understand everything about women, but I think they like to have the opportunity to offload what they've been dealing with emotionally every day. And I realized that my new designation is chief rubbish collector. I just collect it and then work it out of the system. And she feels if she's empty and I'm full, that's a good balance. So what I'm saying is balance doesn't necessarily mean 50-50, depending on the season, because you and I are now going into a season. The founder of your firm is going into a season where he's going 60-40 for spending time with loved ones, doing things that make sense to him, 70-30, 80-20. But when he started the company, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think so if people really just take a deep breath and say, in this season of my life, balance is 80-20, but the 20 I'm going to live with intent, to take a leaf from your book. So I'm going to be so present. This thing is not going to be, I apologize. This thing is not going to be while I'm having pizza with my wife. I walk into restaurants and I see people walk, you've seen it yourself, sitting opposite each other.
On the phone.
Yeah. That's the one opportunity they have to go like, los jou phone. And so my wife and I have a joke. We hold each other accountable. She would say, los jou phone. And then I know, okay, now. So that's the one thing you said, balance. I want to just touch on discipline. Discipline is the accumulation of just many incremental actions taken without the knowledge that it's going to necessarily render a result. I don't want to preempt what I'm going to say later on about courage, but I think discipline is really just chosen intent, once again, your word, repeated over and over again until it becomes your identity. The identity always follows the little actions that you take with intent. It never precedes it. The identity comes as a result of once you have climbed, Reinhold Messner climbed all 14 8,000 meter peaks without supplemental oxygen. If people speak of him now, he's a mountaineer, right? But they don't know about the 13 of those 14. He actually climbed those mountains 27 times because 13 of the 14 he had to climb twice because he failed. But if you look at him, his identity is he's a mountaineer. In his case, you don't have to go and climb an 8,000 meter peak. But I think you see where I'm getting at. Discipline, I think, is it's not supposed to be punishment. It's more of I'm forming my identity in something that I'm doing on a repeated basis.
Okay, Leander, again, a few things that I want to touch on. We spoke about discipline. We spoke about less yes, more no's. But there's something else that comes to mind when we talk about these things. And that is that, and again, overcommitment, we tend to add a lot of things in our life. Things that we say yes to, things that make us overcommit, things that makes us lose balance, things that we're not necessarily disciplined about. You've got a different way of looking at that. You don't believe in addition. You like the idea of subtraction. And you spoke to me about something called, I think it was 1 out, 1 in. Please explain to me what you mean by that.
Firstly, Eric Kruger, who was on your
He's been on the podcast, yes.
And John Senai wrote a wonderful book called Expansive. And the idea of subtraction I got from them. Remember, an artist is a thief. And I steal ideas. So guys, I'm stealing this one from you. Well done on that. And I love that. But I added something. I said for every subtraction, before you add something, you must subtract something. Why? You see, addition is easy to justify. Yeah, I must take on more responsibility. I'm the CEO of the company. It's justifiable for me to also want to do that and that and that. But of course, what addition does is the opposite of subtraction. Subtraction protects your focus. Addition threatens your focus. Subtraction means fewer better clients, fewer better choices, except if your business model is, of course, a volume-driven one, the numbers game. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring more to a case of, let me focus on less is more, an adage which everyone probably watching the show has often heard and said, but never actually applied. Remember, wisdom is not, knowledge isn't wisdom, it's applied knowledge that's wisdom. And so what I like to say is if I want to add something, I must first go and subtract something. Let's get practical. I want to give you an example. A couple of years ago, I know you're a very good and a keen golfer, and I used to play golf, and I used to play tennis as well. And then I became involved in endurance sport, and then mountaineering and rock climbing and everything involving that came across my path. And I realized that I'm going to have to choose. So, unfortunately, out went golf, out went tennis, although I love the sports. Endurance sport I did for a while, and then I put that on hold, and in came rock climbing and mountaineering. And it took so much pressure off me, because now if you invite me for that golf game, I'm going to say no. I'm definitely going to meet you at the 19th for a beer afterwards and ask how your game was and laugh at you, that freshie that you hit on the 17th tee. No, I'm just kidding. But it's become so easy for me to now focus on mountaineering and rock climbing because they're adjacencies. The rock climbing helps me to stay safe on mountains. And rock climbing is really a very time efficient. Well, indoor climbing is actually very time efficient because a guy like me is about 15 minutes on the wall and I'm puchai. Whereas I would have to cycle for 3 hours before it feels like you've got to work out. So it's a time efficiency thing as well. But I wanted to do them all, but I realized, look, dude, you're a strategist. You make a living out of telling people less is more. How can you not practice what you preach? And so I haven't played golf in probably 10 years and tennis in 2 years. And I miss it. But I realized those two out before the other two can come in. And so I think it's just really protecting my capacity.
But it's a choice that you make. It's an absolute intentional choice you make, and it also protects your balance.
It protects my capacity, which means I'm not overstretched in terms of capacity. So come back to the Maxwell way of thinking, I can be a success at home as well. Even if I'm there only for 2 hours today, those 2 hours I'm present. But now add a game of tennis and a bit of driving range, and there's zero time left for the success that you want to achieve at home.
Practical example from my side is exactly the opposite. I played tennis at school. I played tennis at university. I loved tennis. I was addicted to tennis. Then I discovered golf, stopped playing tennis. And then a while ago, I discovered paddle. What a game. Absolutely incredible. I absolutely love paddle. And I genuinely think if I spent some time on paddle because of my tennis history, I wouldn't be a bad paddle player. But I just decided no.
Good.
Because I cannot play paddle and be good at it. Unfortunately, it's that obsessive compulsive tendencies coming through. You want to be good at it, be a golfer and be good at it. I had to make a choice. So I've made the decision I'm not going to play paddle. Same thing.
And you're going to stay off the operating table because if you speak to orthopedic surgeons,
they love paddle. I've heard that.
Paddle. They make so much money out of paddle.
Absolutely.
They encourage.
Quick question. You say you're a mountaineer, you're a rock climber. I know nothing about the sport. I've never done rock climbing. I've never gone up a mountain unless it's a reasonably easy hike. I did watch something the other day that was really fascinating. Maybe you can comment on it because you are a mountaineer. There was this thing on Netflix. It's called Skyscraper, where that solo climber, Alex Honnold, climbed a skyscraper in Taiwan. What did you think of that?
He's a fantastic climber. I was in the Andes in 2023, and we were climbing a mountain there. It's the highest mountain outside of the Himalayas.
Yeah.
It's in the Western Hemisphere, but it's also the highest in the Southern. And he was actually there, and while we were taking the long way around, 21 days to get to the summit, he decided to climb it with ice axes. It's called the Polish route, the direct route.
Yeah.
And so we saw them, but I haven't spoken to him personally. He's a fantastic climber. That's 500 meters. He's climbed El Capitan, which is a rock face of 1,000 meters.
I saw that documentary
in Yosemite,
as well. Yes.
and he free climbed that. Now think of this. The Taipei building there's a very measured gap that he's using to put his fingers in. Of course, there's risk there, but at his level of climbing, it's actually a very safe thing to do. For you and I, just to climb to the first story would be absolute, idiocy. But because of his level of skill, because he's climbed Capitan, which is 3,000 feet, 1,000 meters, with very difficult hand placings and I think scorpions creeping out of holes trying to sting him. That was actually fairly easy. It just shows you he's achieved the level of mastery. But when you listen to his interviews, he's so humble and he's so focused on safety. And it's chosen intent, repeated over time. He's been climbing since you and I played tennis, he was climbing. And that's why.
I'm glad you said what you said now, because the experience I had watching that documentary was it looked easy to him. I know it was still dangerous, but it did look easy to him compared to what he did with El Capitan. Yeah. Okay, Leander, speaking of Alex Honnold and what he did, obviously, I know I said it looked easy. I know it is still dangerous, but obviously doing those kind of things takes a lot of courage. And I want to talk to you a little bit about courage and just around how you bring this idea of saying no, being less overcommitted, into the topic of courage. What do you think about that?
I'd like to think that courage isn't something you have, it's something you build. And I alluded to it earlier. Motivation is the same. Motivation never precedes action. It's when you take that step that you feel motivated. When you get off the couch, you feel motivated, and the next day you get off the couch again, and now you're actually driving to the gym, and you swipe your card and you for the points, and you drive back some people do. But I mean, at least you got off the couch, right?
Yeah.
And so motivation never precedes; it always follows action. And I think courage is the same. Courage. I read a great definition of courage. It's the accumulation of many small actions. That's it.
Again, accretion.
I don't think I'm a brave person at all. Let me make it practical. I decided I wanted to do rock climbing, and I also realized that I need experts, but I wanted to go out of the gym and go and climb some real rock faces. And so I hired an instructor and a lead guide, and I paid for their expertise. And I said, and I knew that their job They knew their job. It was to keep me safe. So that I didn't have to worry about the safety aspect, because it's like a blind spot. I don't know what I don't know. When you're on the wall, you're doing something and the guy goes like, don't do that, because this will happen. And so I decided to just accelerate my learning by paying them. And they took me to the Magaliesberg, and that led to the Drakensberg, and that led to going back to the Magaliesberg and then to Watervalboven. And that accumulation of many small actions, and it was weekends. It was really not, I mean, if you saw the first wall that I climbed, it was probably 9 meters. It's not high. But it was me just saying, look, I'm just going to commit to the action. I don't know what's going to happen. I know I'm safe because these guys are here. And when people see the inner tower at the Drakensberg, which is a 5.5-hour multi-pitch climb that we did on the 31st of May last year, people go like, wow, you must have been so courageous. It really wasn't, because it was just the next building block. It was like taking Lego and your kid building a tower. And each of those led to me being able to go to Kenya earlier this year and climb Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya, different so it's in Kenya, and most people, when you say to them, I went to Kenya, they go like, did you climb Kili? But Kili is actually, you can see Kili from Mount Kenya, but that's in Tanzania. That's right. Kili is higher, and it's a super dangerous mountain, but you walk to the top. Kenya, you need to be able to climb. And so the last 300 meters, if you can't climb, you can't. So a year ago, Mount Kenya was off limits for me. And then I decided, but what small actions can I take so that Kenya can open for me? And it was going to Magalies, going to Pisangkloof, going to small places just down the road, and just stacking the one action on top of the other. The courage, I think, is a nice benefit to you just taking the actions. But I think people say, oh, I'm going to wait till I get more courage before I tackle that. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get an attack of courage on your couch. Go out there, get on the bike, get in and do it with friends and make it fun. And I think that's when you become more courageous.
Love it. Kilimanjaro is the more famous one. It's the one that everybody does. You decided on Mount Kenya because you wanted the climbing element to it.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
I want to climb Kilimanjaro.
Great.
I'm not a climber. I'm not a mountaineer.
I'm going to go with you.
I've heard that Kili is possible even if you're not a mountaineer.
Yes, it is.
It is on my bucket list. What would you recommend? What should I do to make that bucket list item a reality?
Okay, that's our goal. I want to invite you to go with me to Suikerbosrand, which is an hour's drive from here.
Yeah.
On the N3, just before you get to Heidelberg, there's a 14-kilometer trail, and you and I are going to hike there with a backpack on our backs and a bit of water and a snack.
Does your wife do these things with you?
No, she says she's not a camel. She doesn't want to carry her water on her back, and she doesn't like latrines.
Okay.
And she prefers to sleep on a bed. She's not she's not one of the, well, how should I say it? She's not overprivileged. She's not underprivileged either. She's very balanced, but she just doesn't. And the altitude.
She likes her comforts.
She likes sleeping on a bed with a flush toilet and food that doesn't come in a packet.
I can relate, but I do want to stretch myself. I was just checking if I could potentially bring my wife with on this trip of ours.
I would invite your wife, and I'll tell Corinne to come with, and they'll go hiking with us.
Wonderful.
Because if we do that, and you realize that, okay, there's a 14-kilometer loop, and there's a bit of a towards the end of the hike, there's a climb, and just feel what it feels like with a pack on your back, in the sun, walking up an incline, and just build on that. And then you'll do the next hike and the next hike. There are many hikes in this beautiful country of ours. You can go to Lesotho and hike for 6 hours to Tabana and Klenyana, which is the highest out south of Kili in Kenya, 3,900 meters. And you feel the altitude there, and you'll feel your legs burning. So, like, that's the goal. Keep that the goal, and I'm going to keep you accountable, but I'm going to nudge you on whether you've been to Suikerbos.
Let's get it done. Leander, I've got one courage example, and it's this podcast. It was something that I wanted to do, and I was so scared of it, and I always try to think, when was the right time to do it? And when will I have the right content or the right guests or the right equipment or the right studio? And I still remember distinctly the year that I decided, you know what? It doesn't matter where I'm ready. I'm never going to have the perfect circumstances to start this podcast. And I just decided one day, let's go for it. Let's record 10 episodes. My first 10 episodes are all recorded on one day. And looking back at that, wasn't a great idea. Absolute terrible quality. But the point is, I started. I took action. I did something. Here I am, 75 episodes later, and it's going a lot better than those first few episodes.
I want to commend you. There's a picture of a billboard on the corner of a building. It looks like it could be the States. And the write-up says, your first workout will suck. Your first podcast will probably also suck.
Yeah.
Your first everything will suck. But until you've done your first, you can't do your 100th. And then he ends off by saying, get your ego out of the way and go and climb that mountain.
Love it.
In essence, it was your failing ego, I believe, that was preventing you from saying, what if it sucks?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It probably will suck.
Yeah.
Because your first in everything will suck. Your first round of golf.
No, it was terrible. Horrible.
That resembled the one the other day at Highland Gate.
Yes.
Not
at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have the one at Highland Gate with our mutual friend Altus if you didn't have your first. So just and it's an ego thing. And I'm going to refer to a book that I really want to encourage people to read every year. And I'll get to the title in a moment. It's actually our failing ego, not the prideful one. It's the one that, what if I don't make a success? Well, I call everything I do. My first YouTube video was I called version rubbish. It's not even version 1. It's pre-version 1. It's so terrible. But now I've done X number of hacks and Y number of podcast episodes, and guess what? They're getting a bit better. Yeah. They're not even close to yours, but I'm making progress. Focusing on progress and not on perfection. And that's what you did. And now you are at number 75, and this is going to be a great one.
And one of these days I'm going to be at 100, and then everything's going to be brilliant.
I'm going to send you that billboard photo.
Let's try and bring everything together before we get to the end of this episode. We spoke about saying no. We spoke about overcommitment. You've got this thing about one in or one out, one in. We spoke about courage. Maybe you can give the listeners and the viewers just something around one deliberate swap they can make this week to bring all of this together.
I'm going to start off by saying what you shouldn't do. Don't start a new habit first. Rather, think of that thing that's keeping you in capacity debt. Because if you add the new habit, you're adding to the capacity debt. So reduce your capacity debt on the liability side first, or your expenses if you want to look at an income statement. Think what is stealing your capacity at the moment, such that you'd probably feel guilty if you started playing paddle now, because that's less time at home, right? Remove that, identify and remove that thing first, then add the habit. Not the other way around. People add first, you should subtract first. So it's out first, out with tennis and golf, and then in.
Like it. Love it. Thank you for that. All right. Leander, every single guest in the past I've asked these last two questions to. It's kind of become a habit, and I'd love to ask the same questions to you. So first question, is there anything that you can tell us that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis intentionally in your life that helps you to be successful, whatever your definition of success is, happy, healthy? Is there anything that you can think of?
May I mention 3 things?
Go for it.
The first 3 things that I do in the morning, the first is what I call the most important hour. I spend time in the Word, listening to praise and worship music, praying, and just looking out my window and looking at my garden, which is a proxy for nature. Second thing I do is I say thank you for something. And if you're in a hole, find something to say thank you for. The fact that you have 10 of these and 10 of those is something to say thank you for. So be grateful. I read over December, we rented a holiday home, and there was a little motivational, inspirational picture that said, if you seek happiness, seek gratitude first. And I'm probably happy and joy, two different concepts, but I'm probably more joyful than I've ever been in my life. And I make a point of saying thank you for one thing. That's the second thing. And the third thing, what I do is I make time. I don't make, there are only 24 hours, but I set an alarm on my wristwatch, and then I spend 15 minutes reading not the Bible, some book. That's how I read through John and Eric's book, Expansive. And so before I do anything else, of course, coffee first. We have to get our priorities right.
No. Water first.
Water first.
Water first, then coffee.
Right. Yeah. Water first. But those three things, most important hour, and it's maybe 30, 45 minutes, but I spend time, quiet time. Then I say thank you for something. And of course, there's things like journaling, which I do in any event in the quiet time. I could have added that, but it's those three things. And then read something before I get up from my chair to tackle whatever the day has in store for me.
I love that. Great advice. There's something around reading that you and I spoke about. You've got a quote around it. Something about leadership and reading. What was that again?
Guys, ladies, I've seen many great, let me rephrase. Not all readers I know, not all people who are avid readers became leaders, but I've yet to meet or hear of a great leader who was not a reader. Find the time and read every day.
Fantastic. And on that point, you've got to end us off on the recommendation of the week. We always do that on IWPK. What's your recommendation? I hope it's a book.
Firstly, 3 books. Okay. Expansive by John, so it's not expensive, it's actually quite cheap. Expansive by John Sanai and Eric Kruger, a South African boykie. Secondly, 2 books by Ryan Holiday. The first is Ego is the Enemy. And in almost every organization I walk in, within the first hour, you can see ego in whatever form or shape or form. And that is usually the biggest enemy. It's not the competition. It's our ego that's preventing us from being so creative about what we're doing already. I read recently that if you are creative enough about your own value proposition, you effectively make competition obsolete. Think about that. The only reason why there's competition that you are afraid of outside is because you haven't reinvented or disrupted at least your own value proposition. Become creative about what you are offering your clients. Competitors will always be following you, but they go into the lead if you try and compare yours with theirs. Think creatively about your own value proposition. So it's Ego is the Enemy, and I read that book every year.
Wow. Even
if I speed read it, I read it every year because this ego inside of this human being is his greatest enemy. And the third book is same author. It's part of a 4-book series, Wisdom Takes Work. Nothing comes for free. A competitive advantage in business, you're going to spend time or money or both, but nothing is for free, and neither is wisdom. It takes work. Read those 15 minutes a day.
I love it. I've read The Expansive, great book, highly recommended. I've read Ryan Holiday's other books.
Yes, Courage is Calling.
My favorite is Discipline is Destiny.
Discipline is Destiny.
It's one of the books that I've recommended to the most friends and colleagues in my life. But now I've got 3 others that I have to go and read. I will definitely do that. Thank you very much, Leander. It was stunning spending the last hour with you. I found a lot of value in what you've said and what you've shared. I will definitely always remember the low ego, high humility team that you spoke about, the accountability partner, how you're going to keep me accountable on my bucket list items, accountable on what I have to read. This was truly stunning. Thank you for today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it. And all that's left is to say thank you for joining us. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please go and do so. If there was anything valuable in this episode, go and share it with friends. And I hope you have a great intentional week. You've been listening to Intentionality, where we grow together. Please like, subscribe, and leave us a rating. And if this helped you today, share it with someone else on the same journey. Until next time, keep showing up with intention.